And we have come to another component of the main body belonging to the business plan, and that is operational plan. And this is about, day-to-day uh, operation of the company. If it's a production company, then what need to be done in every day, and if it's a service company, what to be done as well on everyday basis. So we are looking into its planning. So when it comes to operational, all the operation that need to be in place, and the purpose is to put the effort to take the raw material for production and put together and finally come up with finished good. And then make sure that when you get the finished good, it is to according to the specification, according to the quality, and also in short or in time, rather than making customer to wait. So it's a bit difficult because if you're planning it, you don't even know exactly how to go about, because you never done it before. eh? Or you can also, if you can do it in planning every step of the way, because you are new in this area, maybe you can also look into hiring people, consultants who are expert in the setting up of the operation, the process related to the operation. Some entrepreneurs, if they have the resources, they can already hire some staff or workers that have already been working in a, say, factory uh, that is related to the same kind of product that you are making. So you can benefit from the experience from this worker who have years and years of experience. And that is one way to actually employ immediately and help in the making of the operational plan. The other way is to get consultants who are, already expert in this area of planning of operation. So here, given the components that is related to operational system, and this is about transformation of business input, what you put in and become output, and it could be the business input, what to be put in, and then transforming it, say taking the raw material and then making step one, step two, that's the transformation process. And then hopefully after several steps, you get the output. And then you also want to do some quality checking. So that's the feedback, whether you have managed to achieve the quality that you were expecting. Feedback also could be that from customer itself. Give a few samples to the customers. Are they happy with your so-called samples? And get questionnaires, and then you get feedback. Or in-house itself, you have a few staff to test the product, like that. So, but again, this is just planning. You have not achieved in the making of the product in actual or realistically. Okay, and then you also must look into external environment. This external environment is probably like, for example, you're setting up the factory for the very first time, or the offices for the very first time. Where do you want to put the factory? You don't want to go and choose this factory site to be somewhere it is flood stricken, or not every year, end of the year, you are having, like, in Pahang or in east coast of Malaysia, it's possible that you get flood. So don't go and choose areas or location like that, Or if you choose, you must know how to handle the situation when you are hit by flood. So the environment, environment also take into account when you are doing the operation. So in the previous slide, this is what it can be represented in a schematic diagram. But I think my explanation in the last slide was sufficient about all these input, and then step after step become output, and then you also get the feedback, and also don't forget about the external environment factors that actually involve or affects these steps itself. So you need a good operational plan. Once you, uh, maybe when you first set it up, it will be not as excellent. Maybe you need to modify. But once you already got it right, and then you have to rely with the marketing plan. What is the target, or what is the number of units to be sold? Therefore, your operation plan need to be in line with the marketing plan. Say in 1 month, need to have 1,000 bottles of Bayruto Ali capsule for sales. That is the target. And so you need to look into how to produce 1,000 bottle in 1 month itself. So that's the target. So here, given all the steps, or what is the content of the operation plan, looks like quite a bit, and we are actually covering most of it in these slides to come. So the first of the operation plan, content of the operation plan, is the process, looking into what are the processes, the step-by-step processes, right from the beginning until the end, until the product, or even for that matter, service has been given to the customer. Usually, it will be illustrated using diagram, process chart or flow chart. Okay? So we look into how to prepare this flowchart as well as the process chart. So if you want to use process chart, or Gantt chart, maybe you can use all these symbols, like they do the SOP of ISO procedures, but not necessarily that you must use these symbols. You can do whatever way that is comfortable with you, for yourself to understand, and also your workers to understand. You don't necessarily need to follow these standardized or optimized symbols that is available. So given here an example of flow chart. This is quite common that we researchers are used to. Looks like this one is an example of making the mixed fruit jelly. So what will be the first step? Is obviously transferring the fruits from the store to the production area. Then looking at the quality, cleaning, cleaning it away from dirt or whatever unwanted materials, and then chopping it, boiling it, and then many other steps until come to the not even the last step. There's further steps. Boil the mixture for 90 minutes. Looks like maybe there's another page coming after that. So this is one example of using flowchart. And here is an example for service. And in terms of the service given is the web designing service. Uh, what I can gather is instead of, compared to production of material or product, service is much more simpler. And then you can afford to miss one step and still achieve the end result. Assuming you already clear about every step of the way, from taking the raw material until become product. What about the production area? Which uh, section need to be first, followed by the next section? In each section, what are the equipment, machinery need to be put in place that it looks like a chain reaction until from the beginning until the end where the product is ready. So that's where the next thing to learn is operation layout. So looks like this layout can be put based on process. We will see each one, and then it could be also in terms of layout in terms of the product or based on marketing. So if you consider the layout to be a product layout, it has to be like a continuous flow in the production. Step one until last step, looking into slowly building the product until become complete. So that's the meaning of sequence of activities when it comes to product. And when it comes to this type of layout, it is normally found in food processing factory. Let's look at the example in the next slide. So you see here an example of food or food processing layout, which is it can just start with the how the area is made in this way of designing and then actually building it in this way. So you will have, say, the pineapple coming from the orchard or the farm, and then all the pineapple maybe have workers here, three workers, cutting, chopping, and then washing them in water, and then again more processing, and then sterilizing it, and putting into cans. Maybe you have benches here, three benches uh, with workers to fill up. Or if you are a bit, having more resources, you could actually look into automation where the filling is done with less labor intensive. And then after that, the finished good is stored until it is sent to the customer or trader or supermarket for sales. Another type of layout is by process, and looks like it is more common for layout like such as this when you have several product to be done using overlapping processes. Therefore, you can have this layout. So they are similar equipment or similar team of workers requiring the same step, therefore can share. Uh, and looks like examples of business include steel workshop and also tailor store. Maybe that you have one group of tailors just in cutting, and then you have another group of tailors after that in stitching, like that. So looks like, yeah, this is in the steel workshop. You will have the machinery being shared for making various types of end products which are using shared equipment. Another layout is by the means of marketing, how you display. Maybe you have display panels dedicated for one group, another display panel for another group. Usually, this is example of layout found in bookstore, departmental store, or even in that supermarket itself. So, given example on based on marketing layout, and you can see the aisles. They call it a display trays or display cabinets, they call it aisles. So you can see dedicated to what purpose. For instance, pastry, all the cakes put there, all the bread put there, and then frozen food, milk, egg, which needs to be kept in cold temperatures in one section like that. So another example for layout, that is the restaurant based on marketing. Many types of layout you need to choose and also ensure proper planning, because if you get it wrong, you will after the renovation you would be at loss because need to modify or redo it again all over. When it comes to the production planning, you have to always rely with what you intend to achieve. Okay? That means you also must rely with the marketing plan. Okay? What is the sales forecast that you are expecting? Okay? If you say you are intending to achieve, 50 bottles a month of sales, make sure you have stocks, or not the customer already used, they come back, there is no more of the product, and then you are rushing to prepare the product, it will be a uh, bad review by the customer, or customer will just move on to some other competitor for product rather than relying on you. And then you have an issue where you make so much of the product, and then the sales is not, or maybe the sales is just that much to sell. Huh? You are not going to get so much of sales, but you have a backlog of product being done in your production. Now you have to understand, or solve the problem of where to keep it, your storage. It's worse if the product is has a lifespan, or it is need to be kept in cold storage because it easily gets spoiled. So if you keep on stocking up with your production being very efficient, but your marketing, your sales not achieving the target, that is going to be an issue in the production planning. So here given a good example on how to figure out how many units to be done in a day. They took into account the sales forecast or the target to be achieving in amount as how many ringgit, that is 25,200 ringgit. That was what already decided. And then by taking the price per unit, you divide it, you will gather how many units to be made, and looks like it's 1,680 units. So assuming that a production plant only works for 24 days, now you further divide this with 24 days, and what you get is 70 units per day for that period of 24 days. Eh? But this is a guideline. Sometimes you can have your production people to make 70 units per day. Sometimes they could make 100 units per day, and therefore on other days they can reduce the production. Or maybe they have another product, so they compensate for the days they already achieved the target by looking into production of another product, or altogether stop production. Therefore, if 1,680 units achieved in 20 days, stop production altogether. Or if you are confident of sales for the following month, you can also look into starting the production for the next month. So you play around with like this, but all look into product planning. So the next component in the planning of the operation is the raw material. For instance, the product of Bayruto Ali, you need the tongkat ali itself, the root of the tongkat ali. That comes from the indigenous people. But it doesn't stop there only. Also, the bottles, the labels, and then the hologram, and then also the below here, it is the expiry date, the batch, all these done by the production site itself. Uh, so these are the planning in any product you need to look into. So list down all the raw material. In my case, I have three types of roots that I need to get from the supplier, that is the indigenous people. And then once you list down, make these bills of material to have the amount in ringgit Malaysia, how much you need to gather for one unit, one bottle, and then once you prepare for one bottle, then you can multiply, say for 1,000, and then say for 10,000. Okay, for Bayruto Ali capsule, if I make 1,000, it will be the cost of X. If I make for 10,000 bottles, it'll be cost of Y. But what you can understand is when you make in bulk, it will be cheaper. So always think or consider in making in large sum because the manufacturer, the contract manufacturer, will give you more discount for that purpose. Yeah? So once the bill of material is prepared, also calculate the quantity for this raw material so you have an idea. The next thing is look for the supplier. Okay, but for me, for the Bayruto Ali capsule, I already know the supplier very well, and also because I register with Ministry of Health, the contract manufacturer only got one manufacturer. I cannot change manufacturer every time. They already stated as that is the procedure. Okay, I may change the supplier for the raw material, but I am happy with the indigenous people because they have been dealing with me for many years. So here, given more details about planning for the material, so identifying and listing down all. Yeah. In my case, it was not that easy as well. The very first time I started to identify and list down, especially finding the suppliers and also the contract manufacturers. Many things I had to learn by trial and error, and I have to admit, even in the products of Tongkat Ali, I have done a few errors in the first product, which has helped me to understand better in preparing for the second product. So here about the preparation of the bills of material. Once you've done the bill of material, it will be always helpful to refer every time when you go into production. So given example here, bills of material, this one to make one unit of pencil. You can see that, they have also identified as product number. Maybe that production factory has more than one item being produced, not only pencil. So they will list out all the product number or the material, and then you can see description, what are the material one, material two that come together to make a pencil, and then its specification and also quantity. Okay, but some information is lacking here as how much in value, how much in ringgit Malaysia is used in making one unit of pencil. That is quite important, vital, If not, how to know how much to spend for the planning. This is another bill of material for another product. Could be making cake, huh? But at least this one has the total price. Unfortunately, it didn't specify how many units of cakes can be produced. So ensure that when you do it, it is having lots of information that will be helpful for you again and again in the production. So here given the suppliers for this production plant, but very important, even I, for this Bioruto Ali capsule, I have to write down everything because when come again to do production, it is sometimes you cannot have it all in your head. You don't want to be like the KFC 11 herbs all secret until next time of production don't know how to do it. So it's quite vital to document everything, and when you want to do it, you can recall by looking at what is written or recorded uh, in the computer. So we are looking into more of the planning in operation, and for this instance is the machine and equipment that required to be purchased. So list out all the equipment, determine whether you need one of that type of equipment, or you need two, or you need three. Okay, some production may be in parallel, running together a few equipments. You may need more than one. Okay, and then look at supplier where you want to buy, and I think this is not that easy because if you make a mistake, equipments are not cheap, and it could be in the thousands. And when you buy equipment, you also must look into one step ahead. What happens if it gets spoiled? Or when it gets spoiled, you must also know who's to repair it. Is this a very durable equipment? It doesn't get easily spoiled, but if it does get spoiled, who to call to repair it? What if the person to repair is in overseas? So it'll be very costly. And then look into the warranty. Uh, Many things to actually consider when you buy the equipment, and this is not a cheap item to buy. So you do need some expertise. Okay, so you can see that buying an equipment, because it's a costly item, you need to look into certain factors. I can go on and on about all these factors, but just want to highlight the fact that if you get it wrong, then there is a possibility that you cannot return the equipment. I remember when I was working in a company where when they wanted to start the pharmaceutical production, they bought all the equipment from China. The boss went to China and look at all the equipment, and then sign the deal, and that's it. After that, they the boss was worried what will be the supply like once it arrived. Eh? So these are the matters to consider. Okay. Of course, you also need to consider the cost of it. Do you want to buy something from Western production? Usually from Western countries, the equipment is very durable, strong, does not get spoiled easily, but very expensive simply because of the currency exchange. Exchange is very high. Okay, so you have to look into that. Also, the supplier reputation. When you get something, I got my 4 or 5 equipment actually made in China, but it has got spoiled only once, but luckily I managed to find somebody in Malaysia that looks into repairing in Malaysia China produced equipment. So it was a simple fix and managed to overcome it. So be careful. All these need to be really put your mind and thoughts before the final purchase is to take place. So given here a table on how to gather all the lists and also have the quantity. Quantity is kind of sometimes can be very challenging because you may need two cutters, but what if it's very expensive and you don't have the money for it? What's good is only one time have to purchase. After that, no need to buy, no need to get every month. Okay, but in this case, the cutter is only 1,000 ringgit. Therefore, I gather you can get two like that. So here, to determine the quantity in a very using formula, mathematical formula, as the formula say, determine the machine production time, operation hour minus setting up time plus downtime. Any equipment need a bit of warming up, just like the car maybe need warming up, and then completely using for 24 hours may not be suggested. It may get spoiled, so must have maybe half an hour of downtime, relaxing, or even when you want to switch it off, need downtime. All these need to be considered for the determining how many units given the formula on knowing how many units to purchase. Maybe in a big factory this is very important, but in a small like a traditional business, traditional or cottage industry, you will realize that even machinery is a difficult item to obtain, and therefore only using cheap labor or one person do more than like two people's or three people's labor. eh? But obviously good to know the formula. So this is the formula for number of machine to be required in planning, in purchasing. So that was for equipment. This one is about the labor force. How many workers do you need? But some bosses, have a different mentality about this. Sometimes they will consider one worker to be worked to the level of three people's work. So you may have a formula, but the boss actually decides whether to take three people or take one person. So then there's also a bit of I do not know good understanding or bad understanding. They tend to take foreign workers because the foreign workers can work long hours with very low benefit or salary. So manpower planning also got formula for a big factory. Probably this is a good way of calculating the manpower planning. While for small enterprise, that's a different story. This is the formula for purpose of calculating the manpower, and also don't forget your own mentality about how many people can do the work even though you use the formula. So here is the labor planning schedule. You put together all the salary. Don't forget, it's not only net salary for takeaway by the person every month. For operation manager here, 2,000 is not the net takeaway every month. It's actually supposed to also look into EPF. He will have 12% cut for him, and then you also have a SOXO cut. But the company also need to give this 13%. So end of the day, of course, the 2% also is coming from the salary of the person, the worker, not from your company. So luckily, no need to take that into account. So if you hire one operation manager, looks like you have to dedicate 2,260 every month for that person. So you can then plan like for 12 months how much to have expenses for salary for this and also other people. This is on overhead. Every month you will have overhead, labor costs, and then also suddenly you got repair, unexpected repair on your equipment, on a machinery. You also have maybe your worker be falling sick. All this comes under insurance. So this is overhead. Overhead is not going to be so much compared to buying asset, but it is recurrent expenses, so still need to look into it. Next is on planning where to put your business, but putting where the business going to be located is decided, either it's a service or manufacturing. And then if you the choice of your location actually determines your sales revenue. So you go and put your factory in the city center. Their land value is very expensive, and also parking, all the utility may be more expensive than in a different location. Normally, go for, if it's industry, go for industrial land where all the other industries are there. Therefore, easy to have suppliers nearby. So that's decides on that. And also looking into your long-term investment, whether you're buying the land or own the factory itself, the building itself. So all these can also be considered when you are looking into the location. Normally, sales will be closer to the customer, so in perhaps the city center, while factory of production of manufacturing will be in the industrial area. Yeah, this one is like what I just mentioned in the previous slide. It's about, if it's manufacturing activity or manufacturing plant, then, should be in the industrial area where you can save money. You don't go and put in a very busy place where, then all your expenses, overhead will be more expensive, and therefore your product also not much profit you can get out of it. While service activity, say you have a clinic, panel of clinic, you don't go and put the clinic. Normally the clinic is chosen near the area where there is a residential area or the city center where a lot of patients can come to the clinic easily, rather than putting in an isolated, maybe too rural until uh, too far for the patients to come. So these are all the factors that can actually influence the choice of location. And from the beginning itself, location do play a major role. If you, make a mistake, if it's a manufacturing plant, just imagine all the equipment, machinery need to be, say you're chosen in a place where it's often gets flooded, then you have to take every equipment out and then reinstall again in a new location, and you're not even sure whether the new location is suitable or not. So you know uh, the takeaway message is location is very important, so you need to look into all these factors in your planning. Yeah, this is on the business hours and also operation hours. There are two different entity. Normally, production plant, factory may just have business hours. Okay, while this service like restaurant, they will have business hours and operation hours. Operation hours is like, don't tell me your restaurant is to open at 8 in the morning, only then all your workers arrive. By right should come like, an hour early, setting up everything, cooking everything, and then only at 8 o'clock start. So, and then same thing if your restaurant closes at 10 p.m., don't expect just dump everything and then go back. So need to also clean up and prepare for the next day. So it may be like 11 p.m. But no worries. Even though it is very long hours, you can have two shifts because according to labor law, minimum hours or no maximum hours, sorry, need to be 8 hours per shift, and therefore if extra need to give overtime, and you can have two shifts like that. So more on the explanation about business hours and operation hours. So looks like business hours is uh, what is the time the business is open, say to public, to customers, uh, and operation is what are the hours the say the factory is open or the restaurant is open, inclusive of the time needed to prepare for the customers and also doing the cleanup and preparing for the next day like that. Okay, so uh, easily put, business hours will be shorter compared to the operation hours. So the next is on the planning of all the license, permit, regulation that need to be obtained. Usually, it will take in the first part of the business itself before you operate. So one shot, you get all the license, permit, all the regulation done with, and then every year only have to renew it. Okay, so list out all. The problem of listing out all is whether all or not. As I said, you may have to do some fact-finding mission, going to another company or getting consultant, or like I said, earlier, hire somebody who's already experienced in being in working years after years in a factory like that, and then use them to gather all this information. So earlier we did the Gantt chart or like a process chart, how to do steps in making the product. Now is the implementation schedule. That means starting up the business, not talking about making the product. From the day of the location is been sourced, and then start to move in, renovation, bringing the equipment, machinery, hiring the workers, all that. How long does it take? That also need to be planned and can be done in a Gantt chart. So you can see here one of the example of project implementation schedule from day one, how long duration takes to incorporation of the business, maybe go and register in SSM, all that is like taken into account 3 months just for that, and then all the permits and license another 4 months, searching for a business premise also 3 months. I don't know why it must need 3 months for that. uh, Maybe in 1 week can do it, all depends, but this is maybe a planning given big leeway. So uh, up to the level of installation of machinery, all in plan. Here, given the importance of having a project schedule, I think it's very important based on my own experience. um, at least you will understand to have planning rather than going about without any proper planning. Looks like the planning helps in the relationship of knowing which activity comes first, which one comes later, and the realistic time and cost to accomplish each of that, they call it milestone. Okay. And also, if you already started to hire workers, knowing how to use them in helping you out, and also managing the money that is already available. Therefore, proper planning actually helps to not waste money. So these are all important in having a project schedule and making sure the project schedule as accurate as possible to the actual activity that you need to do. Once all is already been planned in paper, next you have the ability to actually put the budget in place to estimate. Okay, you will see that budget is not put like 5,515 and 55 cents. It's normally like 6,000 an estimate. Uh, you take even what do you call even figure rather than going to the few cents that you can estimate, because when you actually spend it will be different. Okay. And operation budget looks like it takes into account fixed asset, the one that you buy the machinery, equipment, furniture for the very first time. Normally, that will be the biggest sum for operation budget because this is production, very expensive equipment, machineries. Okay. And then you have monthly expenses like salary, recurring every month, and then other expenses will be minor. Let's look at it in example. So you have here what are the breakdowns that make up the operation budget, which is fixed asset, purchase of machine, equipment, which will take up the most of the budget, biggest sum, but it's a one-off. Once done with purchasing, then no need to buy again. Then you have monthly expenses, the inventory, raw material based on production estimate or production target. And then also other expenses look like insurance, deposit that is done on. This also can be minor and first time only, and then after that renewal. Yeah, as you can see, example of operation budget. The fixed asset is the one-off 80,500 to be paid when you first start off. After that, no need to worry. But the monthly expenses is the one that you need in place, that every month need to pay your workers. If you don't plan correctly, then they have no salary, then they will not be happy. So just like the administrative and also organizational planning, we also need to look into in the operations side all the personnel who to hire, at least not the name of the person, but rather the post need to be in place. So here's all the planning for that purpose. Also, how many of those posts need to be filled up? So you have example production manager followed by supervisor, the operator, technician, and also their task and responsibility, and also how much to pay them. All need to be also planned in the estimate. So we have gone through this lecture on operation planning. Looks like quite a lot. There's a lot of items to be planned under operation, all that been listed there, and then each plan show how the business will be successful, operate within the time that had been identified. You also must have a timeline to be put, and also how much to be spent for that purpose. So the strategy must be good enough when you actually operate. It is efficient and effective.